Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So before we get started, just a quick spoiler warning. As always with these quick take episodes, I'm going to be talking about new cards that have just been spoiled, and if you don't want to be spoiled, then don't watch this episode. So without further ado, let's jump into the most recent exciting spoiler from Kaldheim. And this one blew me away the second I saw it with Goldspan Dragon. It's a 4/4 dragon with flying and haste that costs 3 red. Whenever it attacks or becomes a target of a spell, create a treasure token, but treasures you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. Yeah, this is probably going to be a chase mythic. Let's just break this card down first piece by piece. The turn it comes down, it can attack right away, and it usually can get through since it has flying. When it does attack, you get a treasure token, so you get some of that mana back, but you get even more of that mana back because your treasures now sacrifice for 2 mana instead of 1. So essentially at the end of the day, this only really cost you 3 mana. And that's just from attacking on the turn it came down. Obviously this can keep attacking throughout the game, netting you even more mana, etc, etc. But the really powerful part of this card is that when it becomes a target of a spell, create a treasure token. So if your opponent tries to remove it, you get mana back. Let's say that you're tapped out and they try to path to exile it. You get your treasure, you sack it for 2 mana, and then you cast your negate in your hand. But of course, an even more powerful part of this card is when you can use and abuse spells that target it. If you've got a deck built around targeting creatures, this slots right in. Or if you've got a treasure deck, this obviously also slots right in. Again, it doesn't even have to be treasures that this dragon creates, it can be any treasure that you have, now taps for 2 mana instead of 1. Doubling up the effectiveness of treasures and giving you multiple ways to gain treasures is an incredibly powerful thing. So yeah, I think this card is really powerful and is going to be a chase mythic in this set. But I'm no expert on MTG finance, so take that with a grain of salt. What I can tell you though are some commanders that really want to take a look at this card. And the first one I think is pretty much a shoe-in for the deck, and yeah, it's going to be really powerful in that one with Feather the Redeemed. Feather is a 3/4 angel with flying that costs red, white. She has whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So Feather is all about casting instant sorcery spells that target your creatures. When you do, you get that card back at the end of the turn. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with this commander, and the amount of value that she can generate you is absurd. And with Goldspan Dragon in the deck, even more so now. Because now when you target that dragon, you not only get that spell back at the end of the turn, but you're also getting a treasure that can tap and sacrifice for 2 mana. And with spells like Expedite, God's Willing, and Sheltering Light, you're actually going to be gaining mana. And that Feather deck is chock full of spells that only cost 1 mana like these. Expedite can give your dragon double haste, I guess, and draw you a card. God's Willing can give it protection from any color and then you scry 1, and Sheltering Light gives it indestructible and then you scry 1. And again, to reiterate, you get these back, and you get treasure that taps for 2. And if you want to see other powerful things that you can do with Feather, make sure you check out the deck tag. Anyways, next up is one of my original commanders in my collection with Zada Hedron Grinder. Zada is the original target queen. She's a 3/3 goblin ally that costs 3 in red, and she has, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada Hedron Grinder, copy that spell for each other creature you control that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. Goldspan Dragon can definitely fit right into this deck as well. Let's say that you've got 6 creatures on the board, including Zada and the dragon. You target Zada with an Expedite, and all of your creatures gain haste, and you get to draw a card for each one of them. Oh yeah, and your dragon also now gives you a treasure that can sacrifice for 2 mana. So you draw 6 cards, and maybe another one of them is a cantrip, and then you cast that, and you see where this is going. The original deck tech came out a long time ago. I think it was my 10th episode of all time. But yeah, make sure that you check that one out if you're looking for more ideas for Zada. Another commander that might want this dragon is Brutaclad Telcore Engineer. Brutaclad is a 4/4 artificer that costs 4 blue-red and has creature tokens you have haste. He has at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token, then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. Basically, Brutaclad can change all of your tokens from one thing to another. This deck is going to have multiple ways to create treasures, and then you can turn other tokens into those treasures, and now with the dragon in play, all those treasures are doubly as effective. And I'm sure you can find plenty of fun ways to win from there with all that mana. Brutaclad is actually a ton of fun to pilot, so if you want to check out that deck tech and see what else is in that kind of a deck, go ahead and check it out here. Next up, we've got another Kaldheim spoiler with Magda Brazen Outlaw. Magda Brazen Outlaw is a 2/1 Dwarf Berserker that costs 1 in a red. She has other dwarves you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, sacrifice a treasure token, sacrifice 5 treasures, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. So yeah, now whenever you tap a dwarf, you get a treasure that taps for 2 instead of 1. And then you also can sacrifice 5 treasures to search for Goldspan Dragon. It fits right into this deck. Magda and Goldspan Dragon seem like they were made for each other. Now, I haven't done a deck tech on Magda yet, but if you want to see my take on Magda and what other cards I would consider for that kind of a deck, go ahead and check that out in this spoiler episode. Another somewhat recent commander that might want to consider this dragon is yet another dragon with Gadrak, the Crown Scourge. A 5/4 flying dragon that costs 2 in a red. It can't attack unless you've got 4 or more artifacts, but says at the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. So this dragon can generate you a ton of treasures, and then your Goldspan Dragon can say, hey, I like treasures, those are going to be doubly as effective. So yeah, match made in heaven. And the final commander that I want to mention isn't actually a commander, but it probably should be, and it's actually one in my collection, and it's Ink Trader Nephilim. Ink Trader Nephilim is a 3/3 Nephilim that costs red, green, white, blue, so everything but black, and it says, whenever a player plays an instant or sorcery spell, if Ink Trader Nephilim is the only target of that spell, copy that spell for each other creature that spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. So this is basically Zada on steroids. Not only do you have access to 3 more colors, but this targets everything on the field and not just your own creatures. There's actually a lot of fun and powerful things that you can do with this commander, so make sure that you check out the deck tech on this one as well. Speaking of powerful things though, now let's talk about the combo potential of Goldspan Dragon. Let's start things off with some examples of some auras that can actually bounce back to your hand. Crown of Flames, Shimmering Wings, and Flickering Ward each cost 1 mana, and they actually each cost 1 mana to bring back to your hand. So you cast Crown of Flames targeting your dragon. You make a treasure, you tap and sacrifice it for red, and then you return Crown of Flames back to your hand, then you can recast Crown of Flames targeting your dragon again. That makes another treasure, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, that in itself doesn't really do anything on its own, but we'll get to that here in a second, just wait. One more card that I want to mention that is pretty funny is View from Above. It's an instant for 1 and a blue, and it says, target creature gains flying until end of turn. If you control a white permanent, return View from Above to its owner's hand. So you need a white permanent in play for this to work, but if you do, you can essentially just cast this infinite times. Again, we're just pretty much spinning our wheels unless we've actually got something like, say, Grape Shot, or Firebrand Archer, or Mayhem Devil. Grape Shot and other storm spells can work fantastically in this kind of a combo. Essentially, you get infinite copies and deal infinite damage to everything. Okay, technically, rules lawyers out there, you've got to pick a number, so 84 trillion, okay? Enough to take everyone out. Anyways, Firebrand Archer has whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage each opponent. So with any of those that you're casting in an absurd amount of times, you're going to be able to deal enough damage each opponent to take them out. And Mayhem Devil actually doesn't care about those spells, but it does care about you sacrificing those treasures, because whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. Obviously, there are other finishers that you can utilize as well. Aetherflex Reservoir comes to mind, but yeah, there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this dragon. And of course, if you've got the budget for this incredibly expensive card, there's Doubling Season and other type of Doubling Season effects. Double the treasures, make infinite mana, and so on and so forth. But now that this episode is coming to a close, let's talk about my gut feeling for this card. And like I mentioned before, I think that this is going to be a Chase Mythic rare. This thing can be incredibly powerful in the right deck and can do some pretty amazing things. And again, I'm no expert in MTG finance, but I'm guessing that this thing is gonna be pretty expensive. But time will tell, and we'll see what happens with Goldspan Dragon. And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.